So when we look at mitochondria, they actually have all kinds of functions. Energy is just one of the functions. Mitochondria make the peroxide that I just talked about. They're involved in regulating our body temperature. When we make ATP, we also make heat. They are involved in regulating apoptosis. This is programmed cell death. That's very important. That I'll talk about in a second. They synthesize cholesterol. We use cholesterol for lots of things. We make hormones, we make cell membranes, we make bile. Okay, so we need to have cholesterol. They're involved in calcium homeostasis, and they actually build the heme component of our hemoglobin in our red blood cells. So mitochondria have lots of different functions, and we want to make sure that our mitochondria are functioning properly. Same with our lysosomes that digest stuff. Same with our peroxisomes that are making components of our cell membrane, that are making the phospholipids. When our cells are exposed to too many toxins or too much inflammation, then these organelles can start to fail and they can start to do weird things, usually involving increasing inflammation. So when we have mitochondrial dysfunction, this is associated with a lot of different kinds of diseases because mitochondria are in every cell in the whole body. So we would notice poor energy production, chronic fatigue, usually something is happening with the mitochondria. There's also hormone signaling, those hormones that I talked about, your adrenaline, your thyroid hormones, your cortisol, they can play a role as well. But the mitochondria are the actual organelle that's producing the ATP. We will have altered peroxide formation. We'll have altered apoptosis. We don't want too much apoptosis. We don't want to be killing cells willy-nilly. We want to have the right amount so that we're only killing cells that are damaged. We also don't want not enough apoptosis because if we have damaged cells that could potentially become cancerous, then we want to get rid of those. So again, we need to have a balance. We need the right amount of apoptosis. And then every single system in the whole body is affected. And if the mitochondria are not functioning properly, they can induce the cell to become what's called senescent, which basically means it's old and it will use energy, but it won't really function very well. So we don't want to keep mitochondria around that are not functioning properly. So why would our cells become damaged? What is causing mitochondrial dysfunction or peroxisomes to go haywire, or our lysosomes to not work, or the whole cell in general? For the cell membrane to not be transporting nutrients or binding signaling molecules. What can happen? Our cells, when we learn biology in university, we always learn about this is the perfect health situation. And this is when a cell is functioning perfectly, then this is what happens. But our cells aren't always functioning perfectly. And there's a whole spectrum of perfect health all the way over to chronic disease. So in between, we have varying amounts of cellular dysfunction. And there's things that we can do about that before it becomes a disease. So the most important factors that affect our cells and organelles becoming damaged is toxins. And I'll point out a few toxins that we should think about. Oxidative stress, which is our reactive oxygen species. Inflammation. If we have nutrient deficiencies, we don't have enough micronutrients like vitamins and minerals that act like cofactors that help all of the enzymes in our cells have chemical reactions so that we can build molecules and we can make hormones and cells can communicate. Also radiation, which includes EMF, electromagnetic frequencies. Some people are more sensitive than others. We don't want to be glued to our cell phones all the time because they're producing this energy that can impact our cells. And then age related. So aging is going to have more of an effect, mostly because of the accumulation of all of these other things. Quick look at some toxins. This is a lot of stuff. It's actually amazing how much our body deals with on a regular basis. And we're still, generally mostly healthy for the most part. When we have an accumulation of all kinds of toxic molecules, the more bad stuff we put in, the harder it is for our body to function properly and to be able to clean out or detoxify these substances. So it includes everything from pollution to heavy metals, pesticides, herbicides, our forever chemicals, mycotoxins, plastic, and then our bad habits like alcohol and vaping and smoking and junk food and trans fats. And, so when we put all of these things together, this is actually quite a lot of stuff that our cells have to deal with. So how can we help our cells to be able to deal with this stuff? Our body has an amazing ability to heal itself. Okay, so think about the last time you cut yourself. It didn't stay cut forever. Your cells grow back. We get rid of damaged cells, and then we regenerate cells to make new healthy cells. So we can be healthy as long as we increase good things and we decrease bad things. So when we look at all of the different kinds of factors that will damage our cells, like our oxidative stress and toxins and bad habits and chronic inflammation, if we can minimize those things, and then if we can increase good things like getting sunlight, healthy food, clean water, getting some exercise, make sure you sleep. Generally, when you have a balance where you have more good stuff, then the body can stay healthy. When we have more bad than good, then the scale is going to tip in the other way, and then we're going to start tending towards disease. It'll start off with symptoms, and then gradually the symptoms get worse until you have a disease. This is my top 10 list, and the two things that I want to focus on are the periods of not eating and stress tolerance. So number one, if we want to be healthy, we want to decrease the toxins and the bad habits. The less bad stuff in our body, the easier it is for our body to regenerate and function properly. We need to eat healthy molecules, including our vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals and antioxidants and all that stuff. And then we need to have periods of time when we don't eat, and I'll explain why that's important. We need clean water, we have to exercise, sleep, all of these things. This is my sort of top 10 list of things that I think that if you do most of these things on a regular basis, then you're generally going to be okay. Now, sometimes stress is a good thing. Sometimes when we put certain amounts or types of stress on our body, it makes us stronger. One example is exercise. When we exercise, we're actually tearing the muscles. And then when we have periods of time when we're not exercising, then we regenerate and we grow new muscle myofibrils, and those muscle cells will get stronger. And then the next time you exercise, your body can handle more weight or speed or load or time. So HIIT just means high intensity interval training. The higher the intensity, the more the stress, the shorter period of time you have to do that activity to have a benefit from that type of stress. We can also do things like cold exposure. We can stimulate the brown fat. This is stimulated by norepinephrine. When we do this, we increase this uncoupling protein in the mitochondria, and then we will burn fat and will produce heat. So cold exposure actually helps you burn calories. When we have heat exposure, we are going to trigger our heat shock proteins. Heat shock proteins are really important for helping the body to regulate apoptosis and to help get rid of misfolded proteins or aggregated proteins or weird proteins. Low oxygen. So when we do hypoxia or altitude training and we have decreased amounts of oxygen for very short periods of time, and you don't want to decrease it a lot, even having intermittently holding your breath, right, will stimulate mitophagy, which is helping to get rid of old mitochondria. When our oxygen is low, which we can also do when we're exercising, it stimulates hypoxia inducible factor, which stimulates the production of new mitochondria. When your cell has more mitochondria, you can make more energy and all of those other functions. And then we have low nutrients. This is fasting. When we have periods of time of not eating, this stimulates autophagy, where we can break down damaged organelles and old organelles and weird proteins that might be accumulating in our body.